Welcome into another episode of Betting the Pitch. I'm your host, the real_G Warner on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you can find me, patreon.com as well. There's no pregame.com MLB podcast that I'm a part of tonight on the 6th of August, looking into Monday's baseball card. But I figured, since I know a lot of you wanted to hear it, or my thoughts on tomorrow's card, might as well jump in and give them anyway. Yes, this is usually a soccer podcast. I'm not sure if you want to tell me in the comment, maybe a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, that'd be great. Let me know if you want me to split this out into another type of setup. I feel like it's not that confusing to have a couple baseball podcasts, especially because it kind of fits the Betting the Pitch name. I thought about potentially doing both podcasts under the same name way back when, before pregame brought me online, but we'll see. Thoughts, slide into the DMs if you want to express your pleasure, displeasure, whatever it is, let me know. And I would love to potentially do some more of these as I foresee a little bit more podcasting in my future, especially as we have the soccer season about to start. Still going to be planning to do big kind of deep dives into each of the top 5 European soccer leagues. The English Premier League and La Liga ones are already recorded up, have best bets attached to them. We'll have a best bet on this show. No pregame.com promo code for today, but I will still posting there, of course. So thank you for supporting me wherever you are. Really, I appreciate it. I want to also, I know I already mentioned it briefly, but I highly recommend checking out my Patreon account, patreon.com/real_G Warner. You can access all the plays I'm making and slide in some DMs there, even start commenting on a lot of the posts I'm making, because that's seemingly what I think most of the members are getting out of it right now. And kind of egging me on to make some plays, which have turned into some fruitful avenues. Sometimes not always winning, unfortunately, but check that out. It's a good spot to get my leans each night. And if you turn on notifications, you get my up to the second updates for when I lock a play in or when I finish a write-up. So that might clue you into what I'm kind of thinking about for the day, and get you set up for potentially a winning card. So check that out, patreon.com/real_G Warner. All lines quoted in this podcast are courtesy of betonline.ag, my favorite place to get my bets down early. Reduced juice is offered on almost every game you want to bet right up until game time. Please follow the link found in the podcast description to fund your account. Use the promo code GW50 to receive a 50% match bonus up to $1,000. Okay, that should get all the ads out of the way. Thank you for sticking through them. Let's get into my first look at the Monday card. So I haven't looked at it yet, made my lines, and so I will be as surprised as you will be when I say this out loud. And we'll start going in rotation order. I know that when I do it with Scott for pregame, he usually does it in the order of when each game is going to be, the first pitch will be thrown, but it's a little easier for me on this setup, and I can look across the landscape of lines while we're talking about it. But we'll start in the National League, as they're always the rotation numbers that come out first, and start with the Dodgers visiting the San Diego Padres. And it's a carryover, like a wraparound series, as they already played 3 games, had a pretty dominating victory for the Dodgers on Sunday Night Baseball, but they get to stick around and play a matinee on Monday. The quirks of scheduling, I guess. And starts with Tony Gonsolin visiting Seth Lugo. So Tony Gonsolin has had really, really tough numbers lately. He's always been kind of a good pitcher on a great team. It's made him look a lot better, I think, than he is. Doesn't have great strikeout numbers, and really has struggled lately. The guy I've been looking to bet against when possible. Looked like he pitched fairly well, at least considering how much he's been struggling, but it was against the Athletics in his last start, so I wouldn't give them that much, though Oakland has looked a little bit more feisty as of late. Still a guy I want to go against, and he's opposing Seth Lugo, who's on the other side of the coin, and someone that I want to back. So I like the idea. Seth Lugo, always a great arm in New York, but can never really get out of the bullpen into a starter's role. San Diego, I think, probably lured him away and said, we're going to start you. Besides like a little point of being injured, he's been great all season. And so I'm really all go on this matchup. I made Tony Gonsolin a slight road underdog. It looks like that is okay. So it looks like we are open at, usually a bookmaker number probably came out at Seth Lugo -120, and the Padres down to -113, current number at Bet Online. Over unders 9.5, juiced very heavily to the under. That could be a little bit of a combination of getaway day, potentially seeing some absentees from the lineups. You generally look for, if you're going to give someone a rest day, probably the catchers on a day game after night game. Though it wasn't exactly the late night game. It's pretty much a day game after a day game in San Diego at this point, that this time of year. But maybe you might see some righties. I mean, we're speculating at this point. Maybe Mookie Betts gets a day off. That'd be huge. Number would probably move significantly, as would a rest day for Freddie Freeman. I don't expect that against a righty, though, necessarily. But then you look at the other side, and the San Diego side, Fernando Tatis Jr., if he's rested, that would swing things quite a bit. And I guess I don't need to speculate on every lineup bat, but Machado in there as well. And same sort of story with Juan Soto, probably won't sit against a righty, but you never know. So looking at this number, like San Diego, minus 113, feels like a cheap price for San Diego at home, but not necessarily against the Dodgers. The Dodgers are very often favored on the road at Petco. It was really kind of surprising me on Friday night seeing Yu Darvish such a big favorite against the Dodgers at home. He's usually an underdog there, and it's usually a play I make. So it's been a little bit different. I feel like the marketplace doesn't really like the Dodgers as much as they have in the past. And for good reason. I mean, San Diego's certainly a lot better than they have been in the past as well, but are still underachievers, still under 500 for the season so far. Really have to get their season in gear, get everything going, because they are running out of time. But I do like the situation, especially after a pretty lopsided loss on Sunday night, that San Diego takes this one very seriously. The Dodgers certainly want to beat their division rival and really keep one of the biggest threats to their making the World Series out of the playoffs. I think they could see themselves kind of putting some nails in the coffin of the San Diego Padres if they get another win here. But long way to go for that sort of stuff to happen. And I think the Dodgers, Dave Roberts, will be more worried about I guess the setup of his team and their health and wellness and all that sort of stuff. So I think we might get a good number here on San Diego. I kind of like the minus 113 right now. We'll see if we make that into a best bet coming at the end of the show. Next, I'll move to Washington and Trevor Williams visiting Philadelphia and Ranger Suarez. Washington with a really big road sweep. I mean, not big necessarily for them because they're looking towards next year, but young players trying to get some confidence. That's helpful. It was more of a really bad showing from Cincinnati, but we'll get to them in the next game. Philadelphia, they've been up and down. Say that about a lot of teams in this league, but I think based on the caliber of talent they have in their roster, it's been pretty disappointing. The Bryce Harper experiment at first base has definitely got off to a rocky start, but he still hits the ball so well, so it's worth it. For this number, it looks like we have opened at Washington plus 190 over under 9.5, juiced a little bit to the under. That number has not changed too much. It's climbed a little bit. Currently, we got Ranger Suarez minus 220, get a plus 198 on Trevor Williams and the Washington Nationals. 9.5 still the total, but actually most of the juice is headed towards over. Ranger Suarez has been good, never really big strikeout guy. Washington are not a strikeout team. He's going to pitch to contact. That's kind of it's definitely not in vogue in 2023 in Major League Baseball. So we'll see what that ends up looking like. But I expect Ranger Suarez to pitch pretty well against Washington, though they did take it to a pretty good Cincinnati team, though one that seems fairly flawed. So we'll see how long that keeps going, and we'll see what that's the series really that Washington trampled the Reds on and how it affects them moving forward. But sticking with this game, I don't think that this is a big enough. I mean, it's a big, huge, gigantic price for Ranger Suarez to lay with his mixture of trying to keep the ball on the ground and get weak contact. I do think that that's generally pushes me towards an underdog. I'm sure if anyone listens to any of these podcasts, you know that's generally the side that I lay on, or land on, or live on, whatever L word you want to use there. I don't think it's enough for me, or I don't know that Trevor Williams and his pitch to contact ways, which tend to get hit fairly hard in a small ballpark, that does worry me a little bit about back in the Nationals. I think if anything, I like over 9.5 in this one. And I'll move on next to Miami and Cincinnati. So just mentioned the Reds off a home sweep to Washington Nationals, who have been selling assets for as long as really since they won the World Series in 2019. Tough situation for them, of course, but they've been down and out before, it seemed, and then played inspired baseball after that. It seems like the Elly De La Cruz luster is wearing off a little bit, getting a lot more breaking balls. That has been going great. Miami comes in licking their wounds after getting swept on the road at Texas, just down the road from me. Miami does bring back Yuri Perez from the minor leagues, though, and this is a big arm, great arm, a gem for the future. Definitely some questions about his ability to stay healthy, and of course, with inning limits and things of that nature, I'm imagining 5 innings is probably the max you'll see from Yuri Perez on Monday night. But ultimately, in Great American Ballpark, when it's going to be probably super humid and pretty hot, not a terrible situation for that. to get a Miami bullpen, which is usually pretty good into the game. It's been a little bit weird ever since they acquired David Robertson. I feel like adjusting to new roles has been a little bit problematic, but still a much deeper bullpen than what Cincinnati has. Though Cincinnati, I think, has been better, and a lot of why they've been so good lately is because the bullpen has kind of held up more than anyone would have expected. We got Williamson starting lefty for Cincinnati. He's been pretty good and has actually been improving. And to me, looked a lot better than he looked like he was batting practice for a while, but has kind of found his spot a little bit. Tough, really tough park to pitch in. Got probably a fairly angry Miami team coming in that really want to get their losing streak over with. But should be a pretty competitive matchup here. We got, wow. I was pretty far off on this number. Yeah, I made Yuri Perez a slight road underdog. He opened as a favorite, currently minus 130 at BetOnline. So you get plus 120 in those home Cincinnati Red underdogs. So that's interesting to me. Over under 10.5 hasn't really moved, slightly juiced the under. I guess Cincinnati, certainly after such a bad series, that it's not really a great time to be in that Cincinnati locker room. David Bell certainly been shown it getting ejected fairly often, though I generally always side with managers getting ejected because I think the umpiring has been so bad in Major League Baseball this year, and they know they have the ability to go to robot umps, but they're just not willing to do it because of contracts. I'm not sure what it is, but games are being decided because of poor umpiring decisions, and unfortunately, that's affecting yours truly and the rest of us who gamble on baseball, because unfortunately it swings the pluses and the minuses. But anyway, I like Brandon Williamson's side. I think it's Brandon. I like the idea that Miami does not deserve to be a road favorite. Certainly Perez is scary, but if this is tied in the 7th inning and you're holding a Cincinnati plus 120 ticket, you definitely have a plus EV bet, because I think if you went to live numbers at that point, even at the start of an inning, I would think Cincinnati would be a favorite. So yes, Miami has a better starter, certainly with a higher upside, but he's also coming back up and from having not pitched for a while. So a lot of questions on that side, and I don't really like it. So Cincinnati looks very interesting to me on Monday night. Next, we'll move to Atlanta and Spencer Strider visiting Pittsburgh, and Beto, Oscar, I don't have first names on this site anyway, my bad. But Strider's big favorite, as you'd expect on the road. Atlanta, such a good lineup, and really didn't play that well in Wrigley, but also ran into a Chicago Cubs buzzsaw. So we'll see what that looks like. But Spencer Strider currently a minus 263, minus 263 favorite. Gigantic for a road team, but Atlanta deserves it. Pittsburgh really kind of had a good series themselves in Milwaukee. I think they split a 4-gamer against the NL Central leaders, at least for now. So that was pretty good for them. They're weird and kind of apprehensive to use David Bednar, who was warming up with a big lead today, as their 8th inning guy, or whoever was pitching the 9th. I think Holderman was struggling. Don't know what that necessarily was. Why get him up if you weren't going to use him? But I do wonder how that impacts his availability for Monday night. Don't think he'll be unavailable, but just a lot of questions on the Pittsburgh side, which I don't think will be able to win a high-scoring battle. So Beto's going to have to be really good, or Strider's going to have to be really bad. I don't think that I want to bet on those scenarios. Not really sure I like much in this one. Over under 8.5, juiced pretty heavily to the over, suggests that there's a lot of respect for an Atlanta lineup. I think it's kind of hard to score runs. Pittsburgh's a pretty big park unless you're pulling the ball down the line. So might be some value on under in this series, but it's really scary to do against an Atlanta offense. Next, we'll move to the Chicago Cubs, who are super hot. Drew Smyly starting, who has not been great, has had still pretty good strikeout numbers despite a really high whip and ERA in his last however many starts. I was reading earlier today about him. Got Kodai Senga on the other side for the Mets, who are a disaster. Got swept in Kansas City. Didn't really have a good weekend series, or on Sunday Night Baseball next week, and that's going to be a snooze fest, even though they do play the Braves. Opened at Senga minus 140. It's down to Senga minus 117 right now. We've got plus 107 on Chicago on the other side. Over unders 8.5, which opened a little bit juicy. The over now is split minus 110 both ways to BetOnline. I like Drew Smyly. I like his swing and miss stuff. I like that Chicago is playing so well. I don't love that they're going on the road here, but you can't play every game at home, apparently. And so I think from where I sit with Kodai Senga's got great swing and miss stuff, as does Smyly, though. And one is favored on a team that's far worse, that's got nothing to play for. Still Pete Alonso hitting home runs, yes. Still same sort of story, I guess, with their shortstop Lindor, but I just don't know that there's a lot in that Mets bullpen either. Chicago's has been getting better. Fulmer got some big outs today against the Braves, and there's possibility there's a letdown after a really big series against Atlanta. But I'm a believer in these Cubs right now. I think Scott, my MLB co-host for pregame, did lock in a Cubs to win the Central bet a couple days ago, I believe, and things have gone very well for the Cubs lately. Terrible for the Reds in a pretty poor series, getting a split at home for the Brewers. So you might want to look if there's some Cubs numbers out there that might be a little bit juicy for you the next couple of days or something like that. Just take a look at that division future. And of course, if I lock something like that in, you'll see that on Patreon for sure. But let's move now, or I guess, so I like the Cubs. I would like a little bit bigger of a price on Drew Smyly because he's been so all over the place lately. But I just like the fact they're underdogs. And if you win this bet 49% of the time, 49.5% of the time, you're profitable. And most games do feel like a coin flip at some point. Next, I'll move to Colorado, and Colorado visiting Milwaukee. Got Lambert for the Rockies at Freddie Peralta, who's been really good. A guy I've loved to back this year. It's kind of, to me, been underpriced. I think a lot based on the Milwaukee Brewers lineup and it being as weak as it is. That hasn't changed too much, but they do face a Colorado team who will not keep up, who sold all their assets that they could. Everything that wasn't nailed down, they let get away. Peralta open minus 235 has dropped to minus 225, though that's likely because the juices are a lot, or the spreads, margins, holds are a lot thinner at BetOnline, which is a reason to use them amongst other things, let me say. But Lambert, a $2 underdog. It's a big price. You only got to win this bet 33% of the time to be profitable. Unfortunately, that is not going to be enough for me here, even with Milwaukee coming off a pretty poor series against Pittsburgh. Sometimes interdivision stuff gets a little bit weird, or intra-division. I wouldn't downgrade Milwaukee too much for this series. This is one for them to get right in. Over-under's 8.5, open at 9, actually has come down a little bit and is falling even further. So a lot of juice in the under right now. So not a lot of people are expecting runs. I'm guessing that's on the Colorado side, and with Freddie Peralta, that makes sense. Moving to the American League now, we got Pablo Lopez and the Minnesota Twins visiting Detroit, and Jacob Wentz, I believe. Again, not exactly sure about these first names, but I'm trying. Lopez opened a pretty big favorite, minus 165. It's down to 159, not a huge drop. So you get a plus 146 on Wentz and the Tigers. Over under 8.5. Opened juiced a little bit to the under, still there. Wentz has had some good. I have some memories of him throwing good pitches and looking pretty good left-handed, which might be a little bit difficult for Minnesota, who seems to be very platoon heavy at this point. Minnesota coming in off of, I believe, a sweep against the Arizona Diamondbacks, so I don't think I've won a game yet in the month of August. The Twins really, got very fortunate, I felt, on Friday night. I did have a Diamondbacks play on Friday. Just umpires just handing strikes out with the game on the line, which is outside the box, which is unfortunate. But Minnesota then won Saturday and then walked it off today with 2 home runs of Paul Sewald in the 9th. He blew up and feels like the Mariners were trading him for a reason. Got a lot of prospects or even players like that are in their lineup today, hitters for a closer that they probably didn't really need because they have such a good bullpen. Feels like that was a theft, and Arizona is really starting to look like they are not a good team, and one that really shouldn't have been anywhere near the NL West lead, if not for the Dodgers kind of sleepwalking the first half. But we did add that as a division future, so hopefully that continues. Giants aren't playing great either. Padres are still under 500, so it seems like a pretty clear spot for the Dodgers, and that's why we locked that in right around the All-Star break, I think right before. But anyway, here we are. So don't think there's much for me on the Tigers there. They've been competitive, and they certainly have a young core that is at the major league level now. A lot of their studs, and they're getting seasoned, probably with a look for next year, not this year. Next, I'll move to Boston for Kansas City's visit. Cole Reagans, who had just got traded from the Texas Rangers, seems to have a really big arm. He's on the road visiting Brian Bayo. The Red Sox opened as, I'll just say the current number, minus 193 at present. So you get plus 176 the other side on Kansas City. Over under is 10, juiced a little bit to the under. Don't really like unders in Fenway. There's no foul territory. It's hard to get outs. You got that huge fly ball attracting monster in left field, certainly makes some hitters pull the ball a lot more than they necessarily would want to. But against a high velocity lefty, I don't think that's going to change too much. I think Boston is going to start a lot of righties in their lineup, and that wall will be in play a lot. Brayan Bello on the other side, learning from Pedro Martinez, getting his tutelage, and has really improved a lot into a really great pitcher. Keeps the ball on the ground, should work pretty well in that ballpark or really anywhere. I don't think Kansas City has much of a shot here. They've been playing well lately, and I generally like them way more than I should, and certainly way more than the market does. But I've had a pretty good year of not getting involved with Kansas City games, and I don't think this is one for me to get there because I just don't think Brayan Bello is someone you want to fade, even with the Red Sox coming in after getting swept by Toronto at home this weekend. Speaking of Toronto, we got Hyunjin Ryu starting his second start back from Tommy John surgery, out for a long time. On the road at Gavin Williams. Grant Williams, I think, is a basketball player for the Celtics, or used to play for the University of Tennessee. Anyway, Ryu opened a slight favorite, still there. He's minus 123 right now on the road, plus 113 coming back the other way for Gavin Williams. Over under is 9, juiced heavily to the under right now. Open 9, has been taking some under money since then. Ryu was pretty bad in his first inning or 2 innings in his return against the Orioles, though that was a really tough game to come back to, whether it was at home or not. Looked a little bit better after that. Was throwing a lot of curveballs, which I don't really remember him doing too much before his injury. But I think there's still a lot for him to prove. Bo Bichette's still not in that lineup, but they just promoted Davis Schneider, who I think had more hits in his first 3 games in the major leagues than anybody. Incredible. I don't even think he's on like Yahoo Fantasy. Like, they just add him to the game, I think, and put him on waivers tonight. So that's wild. So for someone that was hitting, I think, third in a very weakened Toronto lineup today that had Vladdy Guerrero sitting out, didn't matter. They still put up 13 runs and crushed a Red Sox team that was fighting for them or with them for a wild card spot and still are. So that was a big series, big win. Now you go from one road trip to the next after a really disappointing home series against the Orioles. That could have been a 4-game sweep at home, only lost 3 of them, but could have lost 4. Then they go win all their games on the road at Boston. And this is coming after a tough West Coast trip where they deserved better against Seattle, but lost 2 of 3. And then I think won a series in at the Dodgers in Los Angeles. So a lot of travel. Might be wearing Toronto down a little bit. I'm very interested in the Guardians here. They are not a good hitting team, unfortunately. Josh Naylor on the IL does impact things quite a bit. I don't know really what it would take for Cleveland to be favored in the series. Probably a very dominant pitching matchup, but I don't know necessarily they have that because Shane Bieber's hurt and not going to be out there at all. So I do think Hyunjin Ryu is someone that can be exploited. I mean, Cleveland's going to do their best to keep the ball in the yard. Well, they want to hit the ball out of the yard, but they don't do a lot of that. So they're gonna hit him probably. I don't think Ryu's gonna be striking him out much. That's not really what Cleveland does anyway. So I think a lot of the balls are going to be put in play. Cleveland at their home park should play it better. I don't love the Cleveland bullpen, and it was a tough loss on Sunday. A lot due to really poor defense and playing guys out of position. Cole Calhoun playing first base. I don't know who thought of that one. He's not even a good hitter, so I don't know what that is, but hit 5th in the lineup today in the early game on Peacock. Got blown late, and Peacock here in the U.S. And then Clase, who's been blowing a lot of saves, also is questionable. So that's scary a little bit if you're back in Cleveland. But on the other side, I don't think Toronto has a ton of answers. Swanson's been awesome, but moving in between the 7th, 8th, 9th innings now with Jordan Romano on the IL, it does leave some questions. Jordan Hicks came in, was kind of off and on in his first couple appearances with Toronto. So I think there's enough questions on the Toronto side of things that it's Cleveland or nothing for me here. I don't think I want to play an under, though. The park certainly, I guess it leans that way, though, with warmer temperatures, maybe not so much. Gavin Williams has a ton of prospect pedigree. Hasn't really delivered on that just yet, but I think there's a good chance for him. Even though Toronto's coming in pretty hot, it's still not the same lineup without Bo Bichette. So I like that a little bit there as well. Moving next to Chicago, the South Side, we got the New York Yankees and Garrett Cole on the road visiting Dylan Cease, who got tattooed his last start against Texas. And it's kind of surprising that he didn't get moved at the deadline. I'm not really sure why that was, but anyway. We got Garrett Cole minus 163 favorite, 149 the other way on Cease. Over under 7.5, very juiced to the over. It looks like that side's been taking some money. So if you like under, you can probably wait a little bit. You might get an 8 If you like over, you might want to go now. But Dylan Cease, I mean, he's got a great slider, got a great fastball, swing and miss guy, but it hasn't been as easy for him this season. I'm not sure necessarily that will change. Though he gets a pretty bad Yankees lineup. Yes, it's a little bit more healthy with Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton in there. But after seeing Stanton rounding third base today, trying to score on a hit to center, I think it was center, get absolutely, I mean, he was dead meat at the plate today and looked like he literally was just jogging around the bases. And that's what happens when Brian Cashman's in control, just still playing old school baseball like he's built in the 1990s Yankees. That's why they haven't won so long. But I don't know if the White Sox are the side I want here, unfortunately, because they did fight pretty hard, had the actual fight, the brawl on Saturday. We'll see what that. Tim Anderson was, I guess, supposed to be out of the lineup today on Sunday. But they certainly asked the manager of the White Sox during the game today to like explain why Anderson wasn't in there, maybe because he got concussed. But regardless, and I guess that does ask a little bit of questions about the Guardians and Jose Ramirez if he got suspended or something like that. But I can't imagine that's going to come down yet and should be appealed. So we'll leave that to the side. Anyway, I expect Anderson to be in here for the Garrett Cole game, especially use him as much as you can because he's going to get suspended soon. The White Sox bullpen, they should, I think, get Santos back from a bereavement list, or for some reason he's not active. They're acting closer now. But that's a big question at the end. I feel like I could talk myself into the White Sox the more I talk about it, but they are a team that's sold, a team that's dealing with a lot of drama all over the place and have sold a lot of their arms, as I've said. So I don't know necessarily that I trust Dylan Cease just yet. Moving next to Texas, we got Dane Dunning visiting Oakland. So I guess we're moving out to the Bay Area. Ken Waldichuk starting. There's probably some sort of opener scenario because that's seemingly what they've been doing with him for a while. Tough lineup for Waldichuk or any Oakland pitcher. Dane Dunning got a great draw. Should be a good pickup in fantasy if you're playing that game. Probably a good one as a big $2 favorite on the road. Looks like an even 200, minus 200 for Texas, plus 182 coming back on Oakland Athletics. They had a good series this weekend against the Giants, but so did Texas. They took care of a better team at home in the Miami Marlins. Oakland, it's a big number. Getting 2-1 odds probably gets that high by the time that the first pitch is thrown. And they have been playing better, but that might just be a fact that they were playing the Giants, who seem to be one of those teams that are really, really fickle, inconsistent, and things of that nature. Texas should hit Waldichuk. Bullpen has been strengthened. They've spent a lot of money this year. They've brought in a lot of talent, especially at the trade deadline. They're really going for it. So those aren't the teams I'm looking to fade at this point in the season, especially with a undermanned roster like Oakland in limbo between where they're actually going to be located in the future. Last but not least, and looks like the only interleague game of the day. Weird. We usually have so many all the time, but I guess that's part of this. And that game is San Francisco. The Giants I just spoke about coming off a 2-game odd weekend series, but losing, I think, both to Oakland in Oakland. Now they go down south a little bit to Anaheim, and it's Logan Webb for the Giants visiting Patrick Sandoval and the Angels, who are another one of those teams that have really struggled in August. And maybe they shouldn't have bought, like we were saying on other podcasts, like this whole season, don't buy. What are we doing? Trade Ohtani. Easier said than done, of course. And things were looking really well because they had a nice series at Detroit right before the break where they took care of business. But let's remind ourselves who Detroit is. Then they had a really tough series in Toronto. I think got swept at home in 4 games by the Mariners, despite having pretty good pitching matchups. And to me, seeming like they had one big blown save by their pretty much do everything closer, but getting the ball to him has been really hard. So I don't really know what that answer is. I'm fairly concerned about the Angels if that wasn't obvious. So we'll see about all that. But Logan Webb opened as a slight favorite on the road, minus 120 right now at BetOnline. So plus 110 on the Angels if you're looking to see them end the streak. Problem with streaks is they only end once and they can continue a long time. Patrick Sandoval has been good, got a good changeup, but isn't the most consistent guy out there, to say the least. No pitcher really is, though I feel like Logan Webb with his keep the ball on the ground, but still getting some swing and misses enough to get decent strikeout numbers. He's a great pitcher, one that I want to back, certainly. Probably won't be backing the Giants, especially coming off a really tough series in Oakland as a road favorite, because that's not really my DNA. But I don't think I want anything to do with the Angels right now. We'll see. I would love for some Angels money to roll in, and I could look towards backing Logan Webb in San Francisco. But even then, don't always like fading the market when there's a move like that across zero in a money line sport. So we'll see what happens. Over under opened at 8. It's now up to 8.5, but juice slightly to the under. Probably finishes right there, either more juiced or maybe falls back down to 8. Don't see a lot of runs. That's been the biggest problem for the Angels. They haven't been scoring at all. If you do like the Angels to end the streak, though, under might be a decent idea because 2 good pitchers. And if the Angels win, that's 1 less at bat most of the time. So I think that is the Monday card. Of course, please leave any comments, feedback, wherever you got, nice or mean, naughty or nice, whatever. I'm happy to take whatever you got. Ultimate best bet is coming, of course. I want to make sure I mention that. If you're not on Patreon, check it out. Patreon.com/real_G Warner. If you heard the info behind that earlier on the show, please feel free. I don't necessarily think I need to do that again. But yeah, no pregame baseball podcast on Sunday for me. So I don't know how many days I'll be doing this, but if you want me to do it more often, feel free to sign up Patreon, hit me up, let me know. On Twitter, of course, @real_G Warner. On Instagram, trying to get up there a little bit more, though I don't really know that that's really mattering too much. And of course, if you're on YouTube, please subscribe to my channel because got a lot of content coming out and don't want you to miss anything that's up there. So for my ultimate best bet, I guess I should be a little bit more prepared for this as everything is falling apart on my desk. Let's see. I'm going to get this video ready for the Instagram post of it all. Okay. So it's the @real_G Warner. It's the ultimate best bet for Monday, August 7th, Major League Baseball card. Check out BetOnline promo code in the description as well. If you want a new sports book or want to sign up somewhere else, get some more outs. I highly recommend it, especially for betting baseball, because you want to have the dime lines, as many of those as possible, to make it easier to win in this world that we try to win every day in, but it's a really hard grind. For my best bet on Monday, August 7th, I'm going to go with Cincinnati. I feel like the Reds +120 underdog at home. Yes, coming off a really tough series. Yes, it's a tough time to buy in after being swept at home by the Washington Nationals, who are playing for nothing. But it's a little bit different here because Yuri Perez is not someone I trust to go deep in this game. Miami's got plenty of their own problems, and I think in a potential for a slugfest, I don't think that goes well for Miami. So take the Reds +120 and stay tuned for more action, I guess, on this account. The @real_G Warner on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, wherever it is. Thanks for the support. Talk to you soon. And that'll do it for this episode. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully this works out. Any feedback, please let me know wherever you can. Slide in some DMs wherever you see me. Try to get to everything I can. I do know that one of my listeners had asked for a parlay this weekend because he was going to be in Vegas, and I did ask to be reminded, but unfortunately I just remembered it. So I'm sorry to let you down. But please, if you do want something from me, just hit me up in some DMs. I'm usually pretty good about checking them and responding to them. Try to get to everyone. So do that thing, and we'll talk to you all soon. Thanks so much for the support, and we will. I'll talk to you. I'm probably going to be recording a soccer podcast. I got to do a weekly one, of course, because the Premier League and such are starting this weekend. Had the Continental Shield today, plus a push, unfortunately, in the Coventry match, which that was the best bet that was out there. And unfortunately, Coventry dominated that game, or it was very close to be a 1-goal underdog leading through most of the game. And then pushing late was tough, but regardless, I guess never going to cry about a push, I guess. And stay tuned. We'll come out with probably another of the big leagues, maybe Serie A will probably be the first thing I'll do. If it's relevant, or I might come out with a weekend podcast. I haven't figured that out. If you got opinion on that, hit me up, let me know, and I'm going to stop rambling. So this is going to be it for tonight, and I'll talk to you all soon.